Networking and marketing made simple is for you, the business owner who has a product, a service, or a message that you believe in. My name is Scott Aaron, and each week we'll take a behind-the-scenes look into the real-world marketing and networking tactics and strategies for getting what you have in front of you to a lot more people. Thanks for spending time with me, and now let's get started. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Networking and Marketing Made Simple. Super excited for today's episode. I know everyone loves the interviews that I put on just because, the experience and the journey that everyone gets to share. And who I have for you today is a friend of mine, Anthony Perl. We connected on LinkedIn, had a few amazing offline conversations. His company, CommTogether, basically helps marketing for websites. And he is the host of something called Better Biz, his own podcast. And, he focuses on the foundations of marketing using 30 plus years of experience to work with businesses to lead to their brand, that leads to their brand moving forward. And again, I like bringing experts on here because everything is factual, everything is truth. They've done the do. And what's struck him is that so many businesses find it hard to connect in an authentic way. And from what all you know of me listening to this podcast for over 3 years now, human connection is the key, and being authentic, being genuine will really set you apart. And with that being said, Anthony, welcome to today's episode.
Thanks so much for having me on the podcast. Really great to be here.
Absolutely. So for the audience that is not familiar with you and what you do, talk a little bit about CommTogether. But more importantly, what they love knowing in the very beginning of the episode is, what was that spark that was lit for you, or what was that aha moment for you that has set you down this path of really helping businesses the way that you've had for nearly 30 years?
Yeah, and it's really interesting because it goes back to when I was a little boy. I have a recollection of my parents buying me, for some reason, a crystal radio set, and one that you make yourself. And I remember building this thing. I don't think there was too much involved in building it. In fact, I've still got the box sitting in the cupboard somewhere. And what you did was you ran all these wires then ultimately for an aerial that ran out the window. And I remember listening to radio that I couldn't otherwise have listened to late at night. And for me, and for I guess for the American audience that aren't too familiar with cricket's sort of similar to baseball, but not really. But it's a sport. And I remember listening to the cricket coverage coming out of the UK in the middle of the night, and the commentators were amazing because what was happening in the cricket was there for a second or two, but they'd talk about everything else that was going on. The cakes that someone brought them, the golf that they played yesterday, things that they were viewing, and things happening in their life. And they had this way of telling a story, of painting a picture with words, and making you feel as though they were talking to you and engage with you. And they got me into the cricket from a very early age. I'm still obsessed with it. And I think that led me down the path of, a career that started in the media, working in radio, a little bit in sport, but in radio and television, and building audiences through there. And then ultimately working in the corporate sector. And then I think one of the big game changers for me was then working with non-for-profits, because that really is the ultimate in storytelling. And one of the really interesting things about that you learn in working for non-for-profits is, I can talk to you till I'm blue in the face about my favorite charity. But if you have no connection with that charity, you might give me $100 as a donation, but you're not going to give me thousands of dollars or lots of time and energy because it's not something you feel. And I think that whole idea of what you feel and talking to the right audience is everything. And that is so much that businesses learn from that. And I think that's really led me down the path of all of the ways that I approach, whether it's branding or websites or my own kind of storytelling opportunity that I have that, we'll talk about in a little bit. But that's, I think it all dates back to sitting there as a little boy listening to the radio in the middle of the night.
You brought something up very interesting, and this is a question that I hear, and I'm sure you hear it all the time too, is, do I need a website? And, because there's a lot of people that, whether they join certain companies that maybe they're provided their own, client website, but it's still linked to that company. So it's not really personally branded to them. So it's a two-pronged question. The first part is, you know, does everybody need a website? And playing off of that, who do you feel professional wise or industry wise doesn't really require a website?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think the answer to me is that I think, if you're in business, you need a website. I think it's as simple as that. And I think that the reason for that is that you can't assume that everybody is going to look for you where you want them to look for. If you're not accessible, then, in places where people look for you, then they'll go somewhere else. And if you're in if any of your rivals have a website and you don't, that's where they're going to end up. So I think it's one of those things that you need to have it if your audience is potentially in that space. And I think there are very few businesses, if any, where you can confidently say there's absolutely no website needed. Now, in saying that, the only exceptions to the rule will be if you're really dictated around a particular kind of space where it could be something that your business is so localized and so about giving people things that maybe you don't need a website. Even then, your local tradesmen, they still need a website. People still want to see and read a bit about them. If you are specialized in only delivering on a particular platform, for example, like LinkedIn, do you need a website? I think then you're assuming that everybody kind of if your audience is for people who already understand LinkedIn and are only going to look in LinkedIn, then maybe then you can get away without the website. But I don't think that having a website does any harm. That's probably the flip side of the question, is that there are negatives to not having a website, but are there negatives to having a website? And the answer is no, because even if you had a website that said, hey, you want to know more about me, you got to check me out here, even if it's just one page, that's what you need.
I call it, almost like a compass. You have a place where you can direct someone to go, because a lot of people, even though you may be on social media, there's a lot of people that aren't on social media. There's people that have gotten rid of Facebook. There's people that aren't on Instagram. There's people that left LinkedIn. How are you going to connect with them otherwise? And that's what I love about having a website, is that it acts as a placeholder for everything that you do, and it can be changed at any point. If you're rebranding something, if you're adding something new to the services that you provide, if you're launching a new book, or maybe you got rid of something that you're doing, it can just be simply edited and no one would know the difference. And that's why as you evolve, your website evolves with it. And I get this a lot from independent coaches and consultants. Should I just use my social media as my social presence? Again, listen, people still use Google a lot. And one of the first things that comes up through a Google search is a personal website. So the best part of building out a personal brand is having yourself as the brand. And this is the big problem. Don't think of anything that you may or may not have right now as a negative or a positive, but you have to understand that being able to drive people to a certain place, whether it's for deliverables or another way to find out information about you, a website is great for that. So you've seen a lot change in the last 30 years. So what do you feel with where the online world provides us right now, and website reach provides us. How different is the World Wide Web and the internet currently compared to when you got started in this whole thing 30 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, if you think about it, 30 years ago, what businesses did was they listed in the phone book. Right. And the interesting thing was, did any business 30 or 40 years ago, or even going further back, say, you know what, I've got a business, but I'm going to have an unlisted phone number and I'm not going to list myself anywhere and hope that people will find me somehow magically? No, they didn't, which is why, they listed in the phone book. So the website is the same thing. And I think what's really evolved in the websites is that people are starting to realize, even more so today, that that not only is there a niching in terms of their business, but there's a niching within the business of the different audiences. And I think the big change is that focus in terms of saying, hey, if you're coming to me and you're this kind of person, go this way. If you're this kind of person, go that way. I think that's been a really important development. And I think the introduction of video into integrating into websites is huge. I think I think you have to be careful with the AI component of what you do. I think there's a tendency to introduce that and hope that it will solve all your problems and you can just go away and not pay attention to your website, when the truth is that it's a really important thing to keep to maintain that human element. And I think the big thing as well is the visuals. I think where it used to be, hey, it was just a bit of text and occasionally we'd shove a photo in there. But people are visual as much as they are, want to read stuff. And those visuals can make a huge impact. And I think that's something that we've seen more and more. And I think as well as is that being attuned to your audience. I think I've seen some websites where they've gone from, one or two colors and suddenly it's just multicolors because someone feels like they should have multicolors and they've not really thought about their audience at all. People get dictated to by trends rather than by what their audience wants. And so I think, a website needs to really engage people with those core messages, and it needs to be fed. I think that idea that a website is just brochureware, doesn't really work. You need to feed it. As much as you need to feed your social media profile, you need to feed your website, not just because it helps you in Google, but because there's a shift in what you do and how the world is working. And if you're not changing that information, then you're not keeping ahead of the game. And I think that's probably the biggest thing is that shift from a very straightforward brochureware and, hey, this is like a bigger version of the yellow pages where there's an ad and a few extra words, to now it's actually like this is a chance to get to know people. And I think that's the biggest thing that people should remember, is the website is like your front office. It's your receptionist. It's people walk in the door of your business, and how they see and how they respond will determine as to whether they go through and have the meeting with you or whether they're just going to turn around and walk to the next place.
So speaking of shifts, what do you feel? Obviously things have been crazy the last now 2 years. What do you feel is the biggest shift that you had to make to continue to have yourself stand out and be different from everyone else out there that helps with, website optimization and website development and marketing and branding? What has that been? What's been that shift for you in particular?
Well, I think for me, it's been a development over an extended period of time, because I think what I consistently have seen from day dot as far as my working career is concerned is that idea of creating content has been difficult. My first proper job out of university, led me into, actually probably was my first job, but it led me into my first main job was working in talkback radio. And we had 5 hours to fill from midnight until 5 a.m. And it was pure talkback, right? So there was no, we played one song an hour. all right, with maybe a handful of ads. So we had a lot of space to fill, and you either our predecessor filled it with maximum of 5 people talking in an hour, and it was boring, to be honest. And it was the same 5 people in the first hour of the show every single night. So we changed things up. And I think one of the things that I learned is that you have to be talking to audiences one on one, and that's how you build them. Because if everyone feels like they're talking to you and engage with you, then they start to build. One of the troubles is with businesses that I've seen is that idea of creating content has been random. Like, I don't know what it's like in the US, but we have our reserve bank, which is the equivalent of your federal bank, every month makes an announcement regarding interest rates, whether they're going up, down, staying the same. And every single broker that where you're going to get your finance from for your loans sends out an email telling you, what's happened with the interest rates. And on the back of that, they throw in a recipe for some apple cake, or they throw in hey, go and get fit. And I'm going, what? I don't understand. Like, this is like, so there is this extreme of this random content that has nothing to do with what their brand is and what they're offering. And it's just like, well, we'll just grab stuff. And it all comes from, one or two companies that give them all of this stuff. And there's nothing there of their personality. There's nothing, and I think this is a consistent issue for people. And whether it's for their website or for social media, that idea of creating content is difficult. Combine that with the idea that people only buy from you if they like, know, and trust you. So in order to like, know, and trust you, they actually have to get to know the real you and to tell a real story of what your experience is, what your take is. And so it's been a challenge, and I've the idea of writing content, I dabbled in that for people for a while, but the problem with writing is that, first of all, it gets manipulated because it's there's too many dotting I's and crossing T's. But also the problem is that if I decide to write an article for you that's about your business, right, it's not really you saying it. You might make a few changes in the end, and people see through that. So the idea of having real conversations and giving people a structured content has been something that I've wanted to do for the longest time. And what's happened in the last 2 years, the biggest shift is in fact what we're doing now, and we've spoken about it offline before, is that the idea of Zoom and any of these other tools that we've got is not just in the last 2 years, but what's happened in the last 2 years is people have accepted it. And so that ability for people to be able to accept, hey, I can do business, I can have a conversation and a business conversation online, has allowed me to develop a program where we interview people, we interview a business leader for 90 minutes and turn that into a whole series of little videos. And so it's content that they've got that is about them. By me interviewing them, they become an authority, which is what they want. By having a whole lot of content, in fact, we show them how they can make it into enough for a year, gives them that accessibility. And the biggest thing as well is that it's authentic, because it's them telling the story. We're not changing the words. We're not going to go and edit them. We give them what they have said in that session, and we're asking them to tell stories about the things that relate them to their audience. It's a structured conversation in some respects, but of course it does flow naturally as well. But it's really about trying to hit various marks for things so that they've got different subjects that they can carry forward and place it on websites, newsletters, in social media. And I think that, to me, has been the big opportunity that I've seen that has allowed that to happen. And I think I've been in a unique position because of not only my background in the media, but a background in marketing for the past 30 years, so that the questions and the kind of way that we're leading the conversation is what we know that they need to be talking about in order to relate to their audience. And I think that's only been possible mentally for people because of what's happened in the last 2 years. I don't know about you, Scott, but when I approach people, I remember 4 or 5 years ago saying, "Hey, why don't we jump on, in a Zoom or Skype or any of these kinds of things?" And they just kind of look at you going, half the time they'd say, "Our IT department doesn't even allow us to use those tools." So it was kind of like, so we've I think that has been to me the biggest monumental shift, and by the same token, that has broken down geographic boundaries. Before, networking and who you did business with was dictated to by geography. You'd go to a local networking group, plenty of them around, and you'd have breakfast or lunch or whatever it was on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, and you would, and that's who you would do business with. And now my clients are, all over the place, whether they're all over Australia and international as well, because it doesn't matter anymore. We're having this conversation. It happens to be, morning my time, afternoon your time. Doesn't really matter, does it? We could still just as easily do business.
No restrictions. And, building the know, like, and trust is so important and powerful. And one of the best ways that I always tell people that can be done and achieved is through video content. But that's also the scariest thing for people to get themselves to do. So why do you feel, even at this stage in online marketing and branding and social media, why do you feel people are still afraid to put themselves on the video?
I think there's still people that look at themselves and go, "Oh, I look terrible on camera." There's still the fear of, "Oh, am I going to say the right thing? Do I look?" As I said, the more looking good. There's also the whole idea of do I represent properly? And to me, the answer to all of that is very simple. I say to people, if you were if you're at a friend's place on the weekend for a get together, and they invited some other people that you didn't know, and they come up to you and said, "Hey, what do you do?" And you started answering a few questions, and they said, "Oh, that's really interesting," and wanting to know more and starting to continue the conversation. When was the last time that you said, just to wait for a minute, can I just go in? I just want to change my shirt and just to look a little bit better and do my hair and makeup. And you and I don't have to do our hair, and when was the last time you got halfway through that conversation, go, wait, can I just take that all over again? I said that wrong. It's those authentic storytelling moments that we've been trying to capture. And I think, yes, there's still a reticence and we're still breaking down those boundaries all the time. But I think the flip side of that is there's a mystique around video and around a TV program. I remember in my early media career, traveling overseas somewhere just for a holiday, and you meet people, and what do you do? I work for a TV or radio, whatever it was at the time. And they'd never heard of us, of any TV or radio station in Australia. They were from some other part of the world, and they'd get really excited because it was the media, and there's still an essence of that exists even in a TV style internet program, because it's that, "Oh wow, you're on that program, and what was it like?" And I think that also elevates the ability to tell that story. And I think the whole reason I do it as a 90-minute discussion and not break it into, okay, there's no definitive, this is a 3-minute segment. Now we're going to stop and take it again and move to the next one. It's a continuous conversation because it puts people at ease and it allows them to just continue the flow. And really, so long as they don't say, as I said earlier, we're good, because you can break those things up. And I think when people are used to having a conversation and the cameras sort of disappear after you're engaging people, I think that's what the key thing is about. But there's still, there is still going to be a reticence. I'm not going to say I'm going to be able to convince every single business owner right now that, you can jump on the program. There'll still be people that will feel a little bit intimidated by that. We do our best to try and break that down, and having conversations beforehand to say, it's just like this. It really doesn't matter. You don't need, it's just the same as having a conversation at with a friend of a friend, wherever that might be. The fact that we happen to be doing it virtually, what difference does that make?
Yeah, they say T. Harv Eker says that every master was once a disaster. So no matter where you're starting, everyone has a first video, everyone has a first live, everyone has a first interview, and practice makes practice. You do it to get better and better and better. And no matter, listen, I've done 330 episodes of this podcast. There's still work to be done. There's still things to improve. And yes, I've interviewed well over 150 people by now, and I enjoy that, but there's always things that I'm looking to tweak and refine to progressively get better and better and better. It's not the destination, it's the journey that you're going on to go where you want to be. Now, as we start to wind down, Anthony, tell the audience a little bit about what you have going on business wise as we also are winding down from 2021 into 2022, and more importantly, how people can connect with you offline or online, that is, if they want to find out more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that probably the biggest thing that that I'm working on at the moment is really about trying to set up people for 2022. The idea of having great content, it's time consuming, right? And that's the biggest issue for people. I think we've spoken about it before as well offline. Is that if you're writing, if you're putting content on your social media a couple of times a week, and probably ideally 3 times a week is about the number, then you're spending minimum 3 hours, but probably more like 5 or 6 in doing that. And so I look at them and I say, well, what if we change that so that we did it in this 90-minute session, and we showed you how you can even get a couple of other people to create the rest of it, because they've got your voice, they've got what you've actually said there. So to me, that's the biggest thing, and it's planning that for 2022. It's getting all of that sorted in one go, so you focus on what you do best, which is your job, right? And the things that you really bring you that love and passion. So and I think on the back of that as well, or even leading into that, I do an assessment of people's communication and marketing, which is really around a framework that I've developed over the years that I call community bands. But it's about essentially what are those elements that will help you get communication and marketing success. And we look at all of those things and we map them against opportunities and engage people in those conversations, particularly around those foundational elements of marketing. I mean, we started off this conversation with you asking me about effectively my why do I do what I do, right? And most businesses have no clue, and they don't communicate that with people. So I think bringing some of that back and bringing that out is also something that I do as well. So I really have these couple of things going on at the moment. One is the Better Biz program, and if people want to check it out, it's betterbiz.online, or better still, connect with me on LinkedIn. That is the best way to do it. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll happily share some of the videos with you, and we can have a conversation about it. And at the same time, I can do we can get into a free chat about it, and I can give you a quick spot check on where you're at with your communications and marketing. And if you want to do a more detailed assessment, we can do that. And then, I even work one-on-one with clients. I have a marketing navigator program where it's really about one-on-one for at least 15 months. That's the sort of subscription time where it starts off in that period. And we work through all of those foundational elements and all of the things that you need to do to be successful. And whether it's social media, whether it's making an opportunity to make a presentation, or any number of different things that are happening in communication and marketing, we work with you on that in a very structured way and in a manageable way, so that you can work at your own pace. Because I think that's the most critical thing with all of this stuff. And it goes back down to fundamentally about storytelling. People are going to start the story where they start the story and when they start the story. You can't dictate to them. You have to be accessible so people can take it at their own pace, because tomorrow they don't know about your business. The next day they might still not know, but in 6 months' time it might suddenly be valid. And so they're starting the journey at a different time to where I might have started the journey. And I think that's so it is both of those programs, the marketing navigator, which is the one-on-one, and the Better Biz, which is the ultimate of storytelling, and helping you do that with content. They're probably the two critical programs that I've got. And of course, in between, we're doing branding and websites all the time for clients, and giving them some direction on where that can go, because it's always, to me, it's from a marketing perspective. That's, yes, I've got a team of web developers, but we don't do any of the web development until we've sorted out the marketing element first, and come at you from that way. And whether that needs some branding and storytelling first, we do all of that so that what you get is something that is going to resonate with your audience. So, but what I encourage people to do is reach out on me on LinkedIn. That is by far the best way to do it. Yes, check out betterbiz.online or CommTogether.com.au, as you can see behind me for those that might be watching. And it's reach out and have a conversation, because that's how it starts. That's how you and I connected, Scott. I mean, I think that was the thing. We saw each other and we went, let's have a chat and see where it goes. And I think you just never know where those possibilities might land. And if I can help people with their business, that's, my adage is about changing the world and doing it by engaging people one person at a time.
It's a good adage to live by. It's what I live by as well. And I think you're doing fantastic work, and I encourage everyone to reach out to Anthony, especially on LinkedIn, and all of the resources, websites, and ways to connect with him will be left in the show notes, so you don't have to travel too far to figure it out. Now, Anthony, final question before we end today's episode. What does success truly mean to you?
Success to me is really about the joy of what you're doing. And I think the key in what any great marketing does is it connects you with the right audience, because we all have people that we love dealing with. And if we can help you connect with more of those people versus the people you don't love so much, then that's success as far as what I can deliver as a business. Success for me personally is not only that joy of being able to achieve that for other people, but it's then the joy of being able to do things with my family and with my community that make me personally happy, that are away from the work scenario. And work allows you to do that, but storytelling, I think, is just the key. I just love being able to do that, to hear people's stories and to be able to help them share that with the world, particularly their audience, so that they get more of the right people coming to them. That's truly the measure of success.
Love that. Could not agree more. And just so grateful that we ended up where we are today with you on the podcast. And I just wanted to thank you again so much for being here. Grateful for you, and also grateful for all the wonderful information that you brought to today's episode. So thank you so much again.
Absolute pleasure. And thank you so much for having me, Scott.
Absolutely. So everyone, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Remember, share this out on social, hop over to iTunes, leave a rating and review. Let us know what you love most. So please enjoy the rest of your days, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much again for checking out today's episode. And if you are listening through iTunes, Spotify, wherever you are, please leave me a rating and review. Let me know what you loved, what you would like to see improved, or ideas you have for future episodes. And if you are interested in taking your business to the next level, don't hesitate to go to my website, www.scottaaron.net, where you can schedule a free discovery call with me, where I can learn more about you, your business, what you're struggling with, and how we can work together. And don't forget to check out my wife, Nancy, and mine, our free community on Facebook called LinkedIn Leads for Life. We would love to see you in there. Have a great rest of your day. And thank you, everyone, for your support. Grateful for each and every one of you.